I've talked before about how Nikari's special conditional healing can be very good in the Slaanesh versus Nurgle matchup. On the flip side, one of Nurgle's counters is to bring lots of non-demonic units. So for those of you guys who still don't know, Nikari has this heal here, if I can find it, the Harvester of Souls, where if a unit is wiped out, if a unit is destroyed within 30 meters, he gains a Vigor refresh and, more importantly, a heal. So, that obviously applies most importantly to demon units, will apply in the future to undead as well, but for the time being, the most applicable matchup is Nurgle, because Nurgle has the biggest lack of mortal units of any of the god-specific factions. Being that they really only have Forsaken and Spawn, and plus the Cultists, which you're pretty much not auto-include in every single army. Most of the time, I mean, your armies tend to involve a lot of Forsaken and Nurgle anyway in Domination just because of the speed, but in this particular matchup especially, you can see here I've gone with a max of 5 with 2 Spawn in reserve, 1 Spawn starting. Also got some Cultists in reserve as well, some Nurglings up front, and the Plague Toads as well. Plague Toads generally pretty decent here, even though they don't have the best offensive output in terms of attack or charge. Their high weapon damage means they can hit pretty hard against the non-armored Slaanesh units. Anti-infantry bonus also pretty nice in certain key situations. But anyway, for my opponent's build here, this is my patron He's got Nikari with 2 Soul Grinders as an opener. Pretty strong melee force. The Soul Grinders in particular are really good against Nurgle because of the armor and mobility and high damage. In general, anti-large AP with the Soporific Musk does mean they can hit hard against any large Nurgle targets, and the armor and their own large status means they're not going to take a lot of damage in return in comparison to a lot of other Slaanesh units, at least. We've got some Marauders with Spears, a couple of Fiends, Chariots, 1 Seeker, 1 Demonette, some Hellstriders, 1 Hell Scourge, 2 Spears, and 4 Furies, along with a couple of Hell Scourge Foot Marauders as well. So let's get into the battle. We're going to be on the Death's Pass map once again. Those of you guys who saw my last match with Nurgle will know I just got hard outflanked and wrecked by Khorne on the flanks by the those nasty Exalted Bloodletters. The Exalted Plague Bears I do like quite a bit in this matchup. I do feel they could be a bit cheaper though, given what you get out of them, but in this matchup specifically, just the massive amount of HP they have, the fact that they do hit pretty hard, again, not the best melee attack or charge, but if they can make contact, that huge 52 weapon damage will definitely hit Slaanesh units for that big lot of damage. As the opening here for Slaanesh is relatively small in terms of model count, very fast as well. You can see Nikari just advancing across the field with the Crab Claw Soul Grinders. Ooh, wow, just clipping straight through Nikari's face there. Anyway, Great Unclean One rocking his big bell here. You can see my unholy center force just moving up, of course, to capture the objective. Try and secure some ground here. We're going to get some early fighting between the Soul Grinders and the Great Unclean One. A little bit of volleys also being tossed in. This is really good value per shot, considering the armor-piercing damage being done by the Exalted Plague Bears here. 21 AP per shot. Not very much ammunition, but the volleys so far have done a pretty good amount of HP damage to the Soul Grinder. You can see some slicing shards going to get dropped there. Try my best to dodge, but let's see. What's slower, this spell or the Exalted Plague Bears? Looks like, actually, surprisingly, the spell. I don't think I've ever seen Exalted Plague Bears effectively dodge before. But anyway, Nikari's actually taking quite a bit of damage here, although he is dishing out an extreme amount of damage, up to 1,000 weapon strength. That Wit Stealer Sword just slightly below because of the poison, but still, you can see serious DPS going down on the Exalted Great Unclean One. We are dishing it back, though, pretty heavily. A burst damage that normally Nurgle would struggle to output, but the Exalted Great Unclean One's definitely no pushover. We're 60 melee attack, massive weapon damage. We've used up all the ammunition of the Exalted Plague Bears there, and they've already dished out 824 damage value, damage gold value, so pretty good stuff there. Likewise, the Toads in a surround isn't going to be very efficient for Nikari, although he has much better stats. That 60 melee defense in the front arc will be able to easily defend the attacks of the Plague Toads. In the side and rear arcs, where there won't be as much melee defense, the Toads can actually get surprising amount of damage in, but we'll keep Nikari in the background. One thing, as Masito's my opponent here, we kind of talked a little bit about this after the fact of the battle. But one thing to note about Nakari's conditional regeneration is you'll want to keep him together with other forces and just try and bait out units that are weak, demonic specific units that are weak. These Nurglings are going to be your best targets, but if you could get the Plague Toads here, maybe sweep up with the Hellstriders and get a good engagement. That being said, the spawn being close by, it's a little bit tough. You maybe want to get a little bit further away from support, and just otherwise kind of running over here with Nakari, I don't think it's going to do a lot for you. I think Nakari probably wants to hang around the center objective and work with these other units to try and nuke some weakened demonic forces to try and get a little bit of healing to get back in the game. But that being said, split pushing the side objectives is definitely the right call for now, as I've pretty decisively won the center, although the Soul Grinder is still coming in here, grinding down some Nurglings. Both the Cultists also been summoned in at this point, which the armor sundering is quite nice here. Puts the Soul Grinder down to 60 armor, so even the Nurglings can make a little bit of contact as they get a nice surround here. The Cultists are on horseback, you can see, which only gives them 45 armor, but still good mobility. 78 speed is something that makes them fairly unique, actually, on Nurgle's roster, so there's that. A Great Unclean One can just sit in the center. A lot of people are complaining that the Great Unclean One doesn't have regeneration, either the regular or exalted, but actually it is a benefit. Keep in mind that the damage boost you get from the standard regeneration trait against fire damage, right, or rather a damage increase, I should say, to any fire damage taken would mean that against a lot of targets, not really applicable in this matchup, but against a lot of targets, you would be taking actually much more damage than I think it's worth to have in regeneration, especially because Nurgle has easy access to army abilities and spells there. You can see easily, no problem, the Great Unclean One's able to get back just about to full in a big burst, which is arguably much better than passive healing. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, but personally, I'm not too sad about them not having the standard kind of regeneration trait that would make them weak to fire. Obviously, fire still decreases the amount of healing received, but anyway, these Slaanesh forces are just struggling to continue to output damage here in the center. The Seeker Chariots, unfortunately, Chariots are a little bit bugged right now. I am looking for that to get fixed in the 1.1 update coming later this week. But Soul Grinder here also maneuvering away, just content to defend the side objectives for now, which is why tactically keeping Nakari over here to just defend for the time being isn't the worst idea, to kind of threaten these Forsaken and keep the Hellstriders safe. The Hellstriders by themselves wouldn't be able to hold against Plague Toads and Forsaken, but with Nakari there, it's definitely a threatening enough force that I have to consider what I'm going to send over there, or maybe I'll just blunder my Forsaken straight in. We'll have to just wait and see. Meanwhile, in my own head, I'm thinking I need to push an objective here. I'm starting to fall slightly behind on tickets, so I could go over here and try and displace Nakari and just secure this objective, but I see these two weakened Soul Grinders, and I think, you know, if I'm sacrificing units over here that Nakari is able to fully wipe out, we'll be feeding extra HP, right? Which I really don't want to do as much as possible. So I'm going to get my big force and waddle on over to that side objective there. Not really worried too much. I'm going to try and bring in some other units to kind of belatedly come and defend this objective here. Meanwhile, you'll note with the Forsaken, they get routed off, and they are going to have a handful of models escape here, which means, again, Ari's not getting that healing that is so critical in this particular matchup to help sustain. Points advantage is in favor of Slaanesh, though, as Mossy starts to bring in some more units here. Just getting some Marauders of Slaanesh. The Hellscourgers do have enough melee defense. They can definitely hold pretty decently against a lot of this Nurgle stuff and just kind of tie my forces down for some time. Biggest thing for me is just to push through. I've kind of been holding my summons pretty long, so now we're going to pop one of them out. Give that unit of Plague Bears there, the Cultists, the Plague Bears, all supporting each other. Anyway, Toads just got wiped out there, which did heal Nakari just a little bit, but I've got another unit of Forsaken just to kind of distract. Really, the right call would be to try and run onto the objective, because probably with Nakari and the Hellstriders, you have more capture weight than what the Forsaken have, but now taking this engagement off of the objective means you're not going to be providing any extra capture weight there. Buys me a little bit of extra time to complete this these side objectives here in order to kind of win the fight, to protect the center there of the reinforcements, and to get my Great Unclean One finally over to this objective. He summoned Plague Bearers are just about done, but we have finished off the one Soul Grinder. Its leadership is now forfeit, so to speak. It's going to be slowly leaving the fight, although still fighting the entire time, obviously. Meanwhile, the Spawn and the Forsaken all the way up and over the hill, getting into the fight here. Spawn, I guess, will feed N'Kari if he's around when you actually fully wipe the unit, but it's a little bit trickier, just because you don't get, kind of the visual indication that you would if you're suffering leadership damage. And yeah, anyway, it's yes, the Spawn can still feed HP. There's no consideration there, but anyway, big messy fight in the center is definitely favoring me, although the Slaanesh Marauders are probably trading okay here against the Spawn. Just in general, all of this Nurgle stuff stacked on top of each other, very disgusting and working in my favor, although finally N'Kari and the others were able to defeat those Forsaken and get on that center objective, so they are now capping it back. Haven't managed to cap for any meaningful amount of time, so we're now going to have to get back over to the center. Sort of the eternal problem of Nurgle versus Slaanesh, right, is that you're eternally being outmaneuvered and having to make tough decisions about where to bring units in and when. But now at this point, I can leave perhaps a token force here to defend and then kind of sandwich these two functional groups back towards each other, right? We managed to beat back the reinforcements and come collapse back here, and same with the other Forsaken. Spawn, more Nurglings being brought out for my own deployments, so looking pretty good. I'm pretty comfortable, even though I am pretty far behind. I need to capture the center objective relatively quickly, but I'm confident I'll be able to do so. N'Kari runs in here, is going to do a huge amount of damage, drop a big slicing shards. I guess that was kind of the idea, was just to bait up the big spell. Pretty long cast animation. N'Kari's going to be taking hits that entire time, but you see I immediately respond with an overcast, fleshy abundance. Going to hit all of these units to provide some nice healing, so we can just sustain through that damage. But will Slaanesh be able to hold on and just hold me off of the objectives long enough to actually take home the win? That is the question at this point. Managed to secure objective number 3 here. Could say maybe I should go dispatch some forces to try and push off this objective number 1, which I may do relatively shortly, but right now I'm just focused on committing here to the center and not trying to spread myself too thin, trying to capture too many objectives at the same time. But time is running relatively short, and see me just like forcing through all these putrid, decrepit units. Groups truly blessed with all of the gifts of Papa Nurgle. Oh man, aesthetically a Nurgle is disgustingly appropriate. Very, very fun matchup. These two had quite the trailer, I have to say. One of my favorite trailers from the kind of pre-release time of Total War Warhammer 3. More slicing shards can be dropped down. I believe this is on summoned units both, which is not the worst thing, I guess, at the end of the day. Those are actual demonettes. Let's see if I bring up the info card real quick. Oh no, those are actual demonettes. Definitely summoned plague bears, but I mean the demonettes were probably done for anyway, so maybe got a little bit of a chunk of those other units. But N'Kari, momentary lapse in micro, gonna get caught up against the rock here, and although managed to knock Great Unclean One down, probably gonna continue to take one more attack here. Oh no, actually gets an attack on the Exotic Great Unclean One, so we'll kind of keep them in the background as there's more summoning and maneuvering here. You can see Mossy is his attention's diverted elsewhere as he tries to get these Furies in. I think he notices at the last moment, or perhaps he did actually get an attack order there. Oh no, he does go for it with Willing Prey, I guess, just kind of thinking that N'Kari is probably lost cause at this point. But yeah, these Hellstriders make a nice attempt to come up and outmaneuver. Momentary lapse in micro, but they now turn around. Got the Spawn Forsaken there to protect. A few more Ace Nurglings coming down from the hill as well. Feeling pretty comfortable. Although I almost got outmaneuvered there, we were able to bring it back, and the Spawn definitely contributing pretty well here. We'll have to look at their value after the fact, but although Spawn might not have the best offensive output for Nurgle, the Nurgle Spawn variant specifically, just the fact that they provide that unbreakable capture weight, and you can heal them, and they just, yeah, they provide a little bit of extra mass as well. When chariots inevitably get fixed, they will definitely be more important, I feel, to help stop chariots from just running rampant all over your lines. But a few more Fiends going to be brought in here in this late game. Really, the The thing to do would have been to try and secure this objective number 3, I think, but now that I've got all my forces kind of forward and up in my opponent's deployment zone, it's going to be tricky for him to really secure any one objective, given his forces on the field. I've been able to actually get ahead on gold damage value, which can be tricky to do sometimes as Nurgle, but man, these Exalted Plague Bearers have been absolute champs, just absolutely tanking through so much damage, just dishing out a huge amount of damage themselves. Got started great with those Death's Heads throws and just have been able to melee brawl ever since. Even against like higher tier targets, it's sort of the Black Orc effect, right? The fact that they have so much HP, they have more HP per model than many cavalry units. Think about that, and they actually have 100 unit models, so just the fact that they have so much HP against a lot of units, they're actually going to trade a lot better than you might think when you look at their stats on paper, especially with that healing. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed watching that one. Nurgle can be tricky to play, definitely very unforgiving of positional mistakes, but in this, able to kind of salvage things, even though I made a few blunders. Credit to my opponent there, played it very, very well, very close, considering that he kind of took an unfavorable engagement initially. And Ari was able to come back and get his damage value back, which is pretty good stuff. Soul Grinder is not quite there. They did get pretty close, but again, I think had N'Kari kind of reunified with the Soul Grinders and continued to just harass and kind of cycle charge, ping pong, hit and run, whatever you want to call it, around the peripheral of my forces, I might not have been able to even make that push over to that other side objective that I needed to. Anyway, for my own forces here, yeah, obviously Exalted Great and Clean One able to do some damage in combat and also do some nice drain damage as well. Anytime the Nurgle spawn can get close to paying for themselves, this is a pretty good time. Plague Toads also trading reasonably well. Nurglings generally pretty cost effective, as are the Cultists. Yeah, more Spawn doing okay, Spawn doing not so great. The Forsaken come in, they also tend to trade pretty well against Slaanesh if they can get good engagement. That high weapon damage. Slaanesh's side, besides the starting army, the rest of the army is probably going to struggle here. I mean, the cavalry definitely can do okay if they can get good engagements, but you have to be pretty careful with them. They're definitely glass cannons, he said. Theories likewise can also get some pretty good value back as well, but against Nurgle you tend to see a little bit overinflated damage values anyway because, of course, all of that healing. But that's it for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.